What other things did people say to you that felt could be racist?
Okay, it was like late at night, he was drunk, I don't know if that's an excuse or not, but everyone in the room was American and I was the only one who's international and he didn't know that. He looks at me and he's like, and then we're coming for you next. Hey guys, it's Katie.
And Kim.
This is the second video of the series we're doing to unpack our experience as international students who grew up in the Philippines and then studied abroad in the States and also
London.
Last video was an introduction to where we studied, what we did, and whether we thought our college experience studying abroad was worth it. If you haven't seen that, make sure to watch that video first because this video is going to be an extension of it where we dive more into racism, culture shock, societal and cultural pressures we faced in these cities that we lived in. First question, what is the biggest culture shock you experienced while in the States? And also the UK for you.
I think in the States, one thing that I noticed was a lot of our classes were very America-centric, which, you know, in retrospect makes sense because I was in America, but I was like, I also kind of felt that a little in the way that I interacted with people. Like, I could sense that sometimes, like, when I was introducing myself and I was like, oh, my name is Kimberly and I'm from the Philippines, felt like the conversation would kind of end there. So I felt like, oh, maybe these people had not interacted with people from other countries or other cities or states before, which I didn't really realize until much later on that that was happening. I was just like, oh, I'll just hang out with my like international friends, and I didn't realize that one of the reasons why I got along with them more was because there was just more to say or more conversation that kept going and it didn't kind of just like die off. Studying abroad in London was much more of a culture shock because I went to a school that was in like right in the heart of the city. I went to King's College London. People really like dressed up. Like women would be out with their like lipsticks, like eyeliners, like wearing dresses or like tight skirts and like boots. The guys would be also very like, they would wear button downs, they would like look pretty good. And I was like, wow, everyone in my college in America just like wears a hoodie and sweatpants. Like no one gives a shit. Part of it was like, you know, during the cold winter months, you're just like, I just hope I don't freeze to death. So that was one thing I noticed. And people in London also smoke a lot. So in between classes, people would just kind of like go outside, have like a smoke break, and then go back in. And I was like, wow, people don't really do that much in America. Or it wasn't as obvious to me.
I think they do. Like, I definitely have a lot of friends who smoke, but it's more subtle. Like, there's a group for that. Compared to my sister who lived in like 4 cities in the States and London, I only lived in one city, and that was Ithaca, which is where Cornell, my college, is in. And, you know, similar to her, we had both gone to the same international school, but I don't think I was as comfortable, I think, as you were back then. Like, my group of friends was always, like, the Filipino girls group. Prior to the States, I had never, like, extensively interacted with any, like, with white people, black people, Latinos, Native Americans. Basically, I only hung out with people who looked like me back in the Philippines. So when I went to Cornell, it was kind of a big thing for me. Like, whoa, I'm so conscious, I'm so paranoid. Like, am I saying something offensive right now? I don't know how to talk. Like, can I even use the word black? Like, that was something where I was like, do I say African Americans? I did not want to offend anyone. But I think it's cool because then over the 4 years, like literally like all my friends are now so much more like diverse in not just like race, also like just in thinking and values. A big culture shock for me was language. Again, like we had both spoken English growing up, and the Philippines is a pretty big English-speaking country and it's only growing. But it was still very different to be speaking just pure English in the States, especially because we spoke 3 languages growing up. I remember the moment I realized like this was an issue was in sophomore year. I was starting to get closer to people and we were starting to talk more about, you know, like deeper topics like about our past and relationships. You could tell they were getting really emotional and this is a very vulnerable topic for them. And I just did not feel the same, and I was like, do I have no problems? Like, that's definitely not the case. It was the English part that was hiding a lot of it, and I knew because that fall on, I think, winter break, I came back home and like literally within a day I was like, oh my gosh, like all my emotions just like started coming, and it happened because of the language switch. Another one is dating culture in the States.
People define dates as different things though. So if I don't go into it thinking that it's a date, then it can't automatically be a date for 2 people. But some people are like, oh, if you go out and get coffee with a guy alone, that's a date. I'm like, not necessarily.
I agree. I think I never accepted dating culture in the States either. For context, before I went to the States, my idea of dating was, it like had to be very clear. You're going out with the interest of learning about the other person And oftentimes there is also this like phase of courting, and that's more traditional, I think, but it's not both people are like, ooh, we want to date each other. It's like the guy is still pursuing the girl and showing interest, and I don't know, the girl like plays hard to get or whatever. Like that's what I heard growing up. I personally don't know if I subscribe to this, but growing up, that was what I thought it would be like. And so when I went to the States, I felt like it was very equal. Girls could make the first move. The pressure wasn't just on the guy, and so it was like, you know, both can like tango, but it felt like back home was very one-sided, and in the States it was like mutual, which I thought was very empowering.
I never dated before going to college, and so my idea of dating was, or it wasn't my idea, it was what my parents or our parents told us, like, oh, the guy should be the one to make the first move, or, you know, you want someone who's like gentlemanly or whatever. Like, we never really had any extended conversation on dating per se, but the way they would talk about like how couples came together or how my parents like met each other and dated, it came with all of those expectations. There were a lot of things that I disagreed with my parents growing up, so it just kind of went in one way and out the other. And when I went to college, I was very much like, oh, I'll explore these things on my own and figure out how I want to do things. So I don't think I had any sort of culture shock when it came to dating in the US, just because my perception of dating, it was like a blank slate.
And as you were talking about that, I thought of gender roles also. Like, in addition to like being told, oh, what we should expect in dating, we were also oftentimes told what we as women were expected to do. And oftentimes I was like, I do not subscribe to this, because it was very much women are like housewives, yeah. But I don't think that was a culture shock for me either, because in the international school that we went to, we talked about equality a lot, and there was like no mention of women should be housewives and men are the breadwinners of the family. I feel like the way I was educated in school was very different, and I subscribed more to the way that I was educated in school than what my parents sort of told me. Next, though, is racism against international students, and if we've experienced that.
I don't really think I've experienced racism in the US.
Well, I think in the US, yes. In my college, no. I think like the closest would be like, oh, your English is like good, or like, oh.
I don't think of that as racism.
I also
just
don't
think that like people have not seen a lot of people like us who speak English with the same fluency that we do.
I like to think that if people are racist, it's oftentimes unknowing, and it might just be because of like how they grew up. Maybe their parents, you know, taught them this way. I know I at least had to unpack some like racism I realized in like my own culture. The second I realized it, I was like, oh, I don't subscribe to that. But it took like being educated to know that, so I give them the benefit of the doubt if they say something racist towards me. I feel like I grew up in a very homogenous country, so yeah, I felt like I was bound to like make mistakes going into a new culture where I had no tools, no one to guide me through navigating this.
What other things did people say to you that you might have like felt could be racist?
Okay, I don't know if this was racist, but it was like imperialist. It was like late at night, he was drunk. I don't know if that's an excuse or not, but we were talking about, I think, territories, like US territories they could go to. Like Puerto Rico was one of them, and then everyone in the room was American, and I was the only one who was international, and he had known that. And so he kind of looks at me, kind of talking to himself like, oh yeah, we can go to Puerto Rico because like that's ours, and then looks at me and he's like, and then we're coming for you next. And I was like,
Yeah.
I was really shocked. I actually snapped. I didn't even use he was a friend, okay? I was like, first of all, you already did. America already colonized the Philippines. Second of all, get your history right before you try to accuse like
shame on you for your historical ignorance.
First of all, historical ignorance, and then second, your imperialist mentality. I was just like,
no white man's burden. You carry your own burden. We don't want your shit.
I get off on colonialism. Like, that is a big topic to me that, like, a lot of my closest friends, we bond so much because of it. And then I think that the other time, it wasn't, again, this wasn't racism, but a time when I was conscious of my race was during the pandemic, like when COVID had just started and Asians were the only ones wearing masks. And I was like, everyone was looking at me in the bus and I'm like, no, I don't have COVID. I'm like trying to not get COVID and not give COVID to you, but you know, naturally everyone was looking at the Asians who were wearing masks.
Like, you have COVID, that's why you're wearing a mask.
Yeah, no, actually, that was the time I felt super, like, I would go to the bus and I would feel like a lot of eyeballs on me, or I'd be walking and I would feel more eyes and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm suddenly so aware that I am Asian.
I don't know, I was in Asia when the pandemic happened, so we're all wearing masks.
What does confronting / living with USA societal or career pressure look like? Maybe you should talk about career because you actually did like a ton of internships and went down that route.
In my school, there was kind of an emphasis to be pre-professional. Even though we had like pretty diverse majors, a lot of people felt the need to go into like consulting, banking, marketing, go work in a big tech firm. And I was definitely in that mindset as well. It's interesting now because I do none of those things. Like absolutely zero, and none of the things that I'm doing now I would have been able to find in school, I don't think, just because of the rhetoric, like, oh, you went to a good school and so you want to get a good job after. What names are the most prestigious? Which ones will give you the most money and start you off in your career the best way possible? I had also done 6 internships by the time I had graduated from college, and I think I realized that at the end of the day, like, I'm just a foot soldier, I'm replaceable. It wasn't as fulfilling as I thought it would be, and I couldn't really see myself as like an employee for a firm in the long term. I think in the US, everyone that I know kind of like right now is doing some sort of like really professional job, and a lot of them are kind of afraid to leave that environment because they've got a cushion salary, they're around like good smart people, they have good networks, good opportunity. They have a fear of all that they'll lose if they take a risk or take a path that's more unconventional. I don't know, I think there's a time for everything as well. Like, some people will get that experience, earn that money before they kind of do their own thing. And if that's for you, then people do that, and that's a totally valid path. If that's not for you, then I think it's important to realize that not everyone does that. But if you go to a good school where it's also very pre-professional, it seems like everyone is doing that, you kind of just need to take yourself out of that bubble and find other people who are maybe more interested in what you are. And if you look for that, you'll find it. But it is a bit scary to do something different or something that you don't see an example of success like for.
I feel the same way, and granted, both of us went to pretty competitive schools, like that naturally attracts a lot of ambitious people. Yes, there is a lot of pre-professional culture also. My school, Cornell, I've seen it in like business clubs, pre-law, pre-med, and also tech, which is the one I was mainly in. There's also a pressure to be financially independent, like right after, like the second after college, and this like I forgot, it's like FIRE, Financial Independence Retire Early movement. It's this pressure to come out of college, get like the highest paying job that you can, especially like upperclassmen I've talked to, just like get comfortable after like they reach the financial independence, they pay off all their loans, and then they're like, what now? I think that is also a bit of a culture shock to me. This like almost as if your life begins after you retire mindset. Honestly, I always thought that I would like work until the day I die. Also, maybe because in our culture, like I have seen my parents and my grandparents really like work their butt off to like, you know, change their lives from like very poor and like living through wars. Like they just did not have the same like privileges that we do today. And I'm always like so mindful of that. And you know, if I have a family in the future, I also want to think about their security and support them in that way. But also I think it's how I look at work. I don't look at work as, you know, just purely a means for financial independence. I see work as like a really great opportunity to do something meaningful and make an impact in causes that you care about.
I was talking to this like freshman or sophomore year who was like hardcore recruiting for consulting, and I was like kind of like asking him why he wanted to do it. And he came from a low income household. He was at Northwestern on a scholarship. He kind of had to support his family, and for him, like, consulting was the way to, you know, make that jump in like socioeconomic status. So for him, it was like such a great opportunity and would open many doors for him. You just kind of figure out like what's right for you, and that takes a lot of self-awareness and discernment. And sometimes, like especially in college where you're around a lot of people of the same age and kind of going through the same experience, it's very easy to get caught in like echo chambers or silos or be in bubbles. I quickly realized that everything that I was hearing or everything that I felt pressured to do was a function of who I was surrounding myself with. And I kind of realized that like, oh, if I'm like taken out of this environment, then my world perspective changes like completely. And I just like don't feel that societal or career pressure anymore. Yeah, just there.
Another pressure is like not living with your parents. I had always known that after college, like I would come back home and live with my family, and I was like, okay, like obviously it's not perfect and we will butt heads, but a lot of my friends like just do not want to deal with their family and just want to like move on with like the next chapter of their life right after college. And that took me a while because at first I was like, yeah, let me like follow along on that too. And then I realized I don't think that fits me. Another pressure was living in the city. So like nearly all of my friends are going to be scattered in cities along the East Coast. So New York City, Boston, also on the West Coast, San Francisco, LA. And I felt really pressured to also go to one of those cities, but then I kind of thought, wait, I'm working a nonprofit, I'm not going to be earning very much. I also don't want to be in a city because I feel like I come to love Ithaca and seeing how simple life could be, and also how affordable life can be if your lifestyle just doesn't have a lot more consumerism aspects of it, like shopping a lot. There were other things in front of me that I cared a lot more about, like working for my nonprofit, making videos and doing more creative things, and I had to kind of reevaluate and be real with what I needed to financially support what I wanted to do. So I think I was very happy with my decision to choose to live not in a city. Again, like my sister said, this is like, it's very personal to you, and there will be a lot of pressures to pursue a certain path, but only you will know your situation. Cool. Well, that was the video. Next week, we're going to talk about the hardest part about being an international student. We got more topics from you guys like loneliness, homesickness, immigration. So if you want to see that video, make sure to subscribe. New video will come out at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you do want to ask us future questions for this series, please do. My Instagram for that is at AlohaKittyX. Until then, we will see you next week with another new video. Bye!
Bye.